Welcome to Making Contact, an international radio program seeking to create connections between people, vital ideas, and important information. This week on Making Contact.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture recognizes that hemp is the far superior and profitable agriculture renewable fiber. However, they can't grow it because of the current administrative language.
Well, we're real happy that our products are high in protein, high in dietary fiber, high in iron also. Hemp seed is the most nutritionally complete seed on the planet for human consumption.
Once a mainstay of U.S. agriculture, growing hemp has been illegal in the United States since the 1930s. Hemp fiber and seeds can be used to make a variety of products, such as clothing and food. But since hemp fiber is derived from the same plant as marijuana, it's been difficult for supporters of industrial hemp to overturn the ban. On this program, you'll hear from farmers and hemp activists in the United States and Canada who are developing cooperatives and other programs to bring hemp back to the agriculture scene. I'm Philip Babbitt, your host this week on Making Contact.
Rural America will revitalize itself if we're given the chance to have a crop that we can process at home and have value added to it.
Bob Winter is a farmer in Colorado who is fighting against what some activists term Depression-era economics with a vengeance. Out of the dust of the Depression came the Marijuana Tax Act, which banned industrial hemp. To farmers like Winter, this decades-old prohibition has been costly. Hemp is easy to farm and potentially profitable.
Farmers have a need for an alternative crop, something that's good for the country, save our trees, reduced pesticide use, everything that everybody wants environmentally, and farmers want profitability. Industrial hemp can fill the bill.
The family farm started to erode about the same time soil did, about the same time hemp prohibition had come about, 1937. There's no coincidence in that. You have to really, there's something about that really rings a bell, because the family farm really started to lose out when it lost its one commodity that was to provide real value to the farm, and that's hemp.
Dave Almquist makes food products using hemp and hemp seeds. He and his business partner, Kathleen Chipeye, sell cookies, pancake mixes, burger mixes, and now hemp chips. Correspondent Mae Jarrell visited with them at their home in Boulder County, Colorado, as they prepared to fill orders for local health food stores.
Well, we're real happy that our products are high in protein, high in dietary fiber, high in iron also, and low in saturated fat, zero saturated fat. Total fat grams in our products is never more than 3 grams of fat per serving, which is phenomenal. And this is good fat anyways. Hemp seed is the most nutritionally complete seed on the planet for human consumption. It contains a perfect 3-to-1 ratio of omega-3, omega-6 essential fatty acids, gamma-linoleic and gamma-linolenic acids, and they are the building blocks of your entire system.
We're talking 28% protein, and this is comparable to a steak or to any kind of meat like lean meat like whale, lean steak, lean ground beef. 28% protein by volume per ounce is very hard to beat.
The two met a couple of years ago and started the Boulder Hemp Company.
I'd passed through Lawrence about a month prior to that after leaving, I believe, Hash Bash, and stopped into a music store and an alternative store called Creation Station, and saw a poster about Omega Music Festival, and Sky Lister, the owner of Creation Station, told me that his partner, Dave Almquist, would be selling hemp food there, and he thought our hemp food would go well, so headed out to Kansas where we met Dave.
But it's been a rocky road to success.
There's been a lot of confusion, partially because police officers have been miseducated about the hemp plant, and in 1996, while vending with a peddler's permit in Denver at the monthly Smoke-In at the state capitol, unbeknownst to us, we arrived to find at least 100 training officers for the state patrol learning how to handle crowd control and riots, and they were practicing on the hemp event. And I was arrested at the very beginning for my cookies. The police officers checked my permit and said I was free to go because I hadn't done anything illegal, but they refused to give me my 500 cookies back, and I asked them for a receipt, and they said no receipt and that I would never see my things again. And so I told them they couldn't steal from me, and I began to walk away with my cookies, and 7 grown police officers, grown men, jumped on top of me, threw cuffs on me for interfering with police officers who were confiscating my things. So I was put under arrest and released after 2 hours of verbal education, I should say, to the police officer. I was released and returned all my cookies. But we also recently, in November of '97, had a package confiscated at the UPS by the Milwaukee Police Department. The package was headed to Madison, and it contained 50 pounds of sterilized hemp seed. Well, the Milwaukee Police Department is confusing sterilized hemp seed with cannabis for some reason, and burned our product and told us we would not see it again. So right now the Boulder Hemp Company has filed a suit against the Milwaukee Police Department. We're merely asking for $480 some, whatever our package was worth, plus time we've put into this. But there's a lot of controversy because police officers and just regular Jim and Joe on the street they've been miseducated in what hemp and cannabis are and the legalities of it. And I think right now in the United States, all over the country, we're still deciding on how we feel about hemp and cannabis. I don't think all the laws that are out there are going to be around much longer.
Kathleen Shipai and Dave Olmquist of Boulder Hemp Company speaking with May Jarrell. In Canada, there's been a lot of political support for encouraging hemp production. Last March, it was legalized. According to hemp farmer Don Dean, who helps run the White Buffalo Renewable Cooperative in Ontario, the process to obtain permits and licenses to cultivate hemp is long and bureaucratic. But Dean says that doesn't bother him too much. He's just happy to be farming hemp.
I understand it, and the farmers understand and respect it too. You know, we have no interest in doing anything illegal. I mean, legal, we don't mind going through the process if that's what we have to do to grow it legally and to meet those requirements.
Dean adds that since hemp has been legalized, it's been embraced in Canada. White Buffalo Cooperative works with local governments to farm the plants.
We go to municipalities, and their tax base is all of this agricultural land, you know what I mean? All this farmland that they have, you know, that they've taken back either through the person, the farmers died and they left to the state or, you know, or whatever. So White Buffalo Renewables, what we do is we approach these towns. Well, they actually approach us. We put little ads in the paper. Farmer landowners wanted to grow industrial hemp, and we have a phone number and people call. And what we do then is we go out and meet with the mayor and the city, or the town council, or the county officials and everything, and we outlay the plan. Is that what we would do is the town applies for a license to grow to the government of Canada to grow hemp. Okay, so the license is actually to that community, and they get the license approved, and then they call us, the White Buffalo Renewal. What we do is we come in and we hold a public meeting with the farmers in that area, okay? And we say, okay, there's this 10,000 hectares or 1,000 hectares that this county wants to grow hemp on. And what we do is we get farmers in that locality to join in that community. They join this. These white buffalo cooperatives are set in different places. Like there's one in British Columbia, which is doing very well. White buffalo renewables out there, and so we get the farmers in that community involved in the actual labor and everything like that. The city, the town buys the seeds and everything to be planted, and then we come and using those people, we grow the thing for them. We bring in the processing to make it into, like the seeds we make into food products, either milk or hemp ice cream or things like this. And the stalks and that are used in different ways, bedding for the animals, for the herds, and the fibers, of course, we can use it in many, many things. We're looking at generating energy for electricity up here, using the stalks for that manner. And because we have a big thing happening with deregulation in Ontario right now, and that. And in the electrical generation field. So there's an opportunity for us hemp growers there to generate electricity for that community, and that. And what we do is we give that community a $500. We'll just don't quote them. Well, yeah, you can quote the approximately $500 per hectare every year for the next 5 years to that community. So if he's got 1,000 hectares, that community is getting $500,000 a year every year for the next 5 years.
You're listening to Making Contact, a production of the National Radio Project. This radio program can now be heard on over 130 stations in the United States, Canada, Haiti, and South Africa, and around the world on Radio for Peace International Shortwave. If you want to learn how you can get involved with Making Contact, or you'd like to get in touch with any of the organizations you hear about in this program, please give us a call. It's toll-free, 800-529-5736. Call that same phone number for tapes and transcripts. That's 800-529-5736. We also welcome comments and suggestions for future programs. In the state of Kentucky, farmers are also looking to hemp as a viable crop, something that can help small and mid-sized farmers stay afloat. Joe Hickey, who runs the Kentucky Hemp Cooperative, says that his organization is engaged in advocacy work and political actions to try and legalize hemp.
You have a lot of farmers that are dependent on the tobacco crop, especially here in Kentucky. So what happens with the legislation that is pending right now, a lot of the Kentucky farmers are going to, potentially lose, their ability to make a living and stay on the farm. So if they lose that, they are looking for an alternative source of an income. So it's something that these guys absolutely want to do. The tobacco farmers have got to find something else to do, with this land. People say, well, industrial hemp will never replace tobacco. Nobody ever said it would, and we don't believe it will. And the farmers that want to grow, tobacco are not going to quit growing it. They're going to continue to grow tobacco until, they can't anymore. But they want to have access to a way of allowing themselves the financial ability to make that happen, make it a reality for them. And industrial hemp does that. And there's a lot of farmers that just don't want to be perceived as killing, thousands and millions of people. It's just, it's something that I think a lot of farmers are really, kind of giving second thoughts to a crop that is known to be more addictive than a lot of other drugs that are illegal.
Hickey says that he's encountered little opposition in Kentucky to his legalization drive.
I've been involved in this since 1993, and the only time I've ever seen any opposition to this was always related to the federal government in their drug program or the marijuana growers. That's the only two people that we've ever seen have any kind of opposition to this.
According to Hickey, marijuana growers don't like industrial hemp farms because the crops are made up of mostly male plants that pollinate the pot growers' female plants, causing them to flower prematurely. Hickey filed a lawsuit against the federal government for its ban on industrial hemp. In addition, actor Woody Harrelson, whose celebrity has helped publicize the hemp issue, is in court on a hemp case of his own. Joe Hickey.
His is a state lawsuit where he planted 4 industrial hemp seeds, and he basically did it in front of everybody to test the legality of the Kentucky statute. And the district judge said that it didn't pass muster and threw it out of court. Then the prosecutor appealed the judge's ruling and went to circuit court. The circuit court also said that Woody was right. There is a difference. They appealed it again to the Court of Appeals here in Kentucky. So it sits at the Court of Appeals here in Kentucky, and so at this point we're basically sitting back and waiting to see what the Court of Appeals does.
Joe Hickey of the Kentucky Hemp Cooperative. Hemp has won over some high-level officials within agriculture regulatory agencies. Bud Schultz is the Director of Agriculture Development and Diversification for the state of Wisconsin. An industrial hemp supporter, Schultz says he's frustrated with the Drug Enforcement Agency, which has jurisdiction over hemp, making agricultural decisions.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture recognizes that hemp is the far superior and profitable agriculture renewable fiber. However, they can't grow it because of the current administrative language. It's legal in other countries because they've said that industrial hemp of over 1% THC is a drug crop. That means they can grow crops of less than that. Our administrative language says the Cannabis sativa plant is a drug crop, period, with or without THC, And so we want to change that verbiage so that the Department of Agriculture can move on developing their growing protocol. The strains of industrial hemp that would be grown are strains with 0.3 or 0.2 THC, considerably below the world standard.
The U.S. agriculture industry is in crisis, says Schultz, and it needs new crops.
This industry can't survive on corn, soybeans, and wheat in the 21st century. We've taught other countries how well to do this, and we've got considerable more land from the Conservation Reserve Program, and if we continue to plant it to corn and soybeans, which we generally produce right now a unique surplus every year, we're going to drive that price down till you break this industry. We have to have major industrial and alternative crops that can absorb those acreages. If you produce 11 billion bushel of corn a year, you're going to get $2 or less for it. If you produce 8.5, you're going to get $3.50. The $3.50 is a profit, the other is a loss. And this industry out here cannot sustain that over the long period of time.
Schultz adds that the word in agriculture is sustainability, and for that and other environmental concerns, hemp looks promising.
You can make a high-quality paper out of industrial hemp without the use of chlorine. When you use chlorine in the bleaching process, it then produces dioxins, which are a severe pollutant. And that's why the environmental groups in the country support this. The other thing is that you don't have to use herbicides or pesticides in the growing of industrial hemp.
Despite the ban, the hemp industry in the United States has thrived in recent years. Manufacturers and food processors are able to import certain parts of the hemp plant into the country. Mary Kane is publisher and editor of Hemp World.
Sales are around the world are around 100 million, but it's a little hard to say because some countries don't report figures on hemp. Basically, the part of the plant that can be used in the United States is the stalks, which hold the fiber, and the seeds, which must be sterilized once they reach the United States. They're sterilized for a few minutes at 200 degrees, and that, of course, prevents them from being able to sprout. The major part of the industry makes use of the fiber from the plant, and the fiber is among the strongest fiber in the world. It's right up there with flax, which is what linen is made with.
Law enforcement agencies have opposed attempts to reform hemp laws in the United States. Drug enforcement officials say that hemp crops can be used to camouflage marijuana crops. Opponents also say that lifting the hemp ban takes the country one step closer to legalizing marijuana. And meanwhile, the so-called war on drugs continues, creating an enormous crime control industry, as linguist Noam Chomsky puts it.
Increasingly, the criminalization is for things like possession or small street sales and so on. In fact, I think about 85% of the growth in incarceration is drug-related. Well, the prison industry is so big now. I mean, if you take a look at what in the standard criminology literature, I'm not talking about Z Magazine. The standard criminology literature has been for years calling it the crime control industry. It's an industry which is creating its own concept of crime and then controlling it and getting paid off by the public. And in fact, the crime control industry at this stage is getting close to the scale of the Pentagon. And it's attracting the interest attracting very powerful interest. So the military industry, for example, has noticed that there's a big market there for high-tech surveillance and control. It's not yet at the scale of the Pentagon, but it's substantial. It's kind of like a corollary to the social policies that are being carried out. The social policies are imposing a sort of like a third world model on the United States. I mean, the United States is so rich, it's not going to look like Brazil, but it's that kind of structural model with highly concentrated wealth and a lot of people sort of more or less making out, and then a lot of superfluous people, who just aren't useful for profit making. Well, if you're in the U.S. dependencies, there's actually a name for them. They're called disposable people. And you carry out what's called social cleansing. It's like you send out death squads or something. Here we're more civilized, so you don't murder them. What you do is throw them in jail. And the policies of declaring a war against the poor and the black and so on, that's a very specific policy, which in fact is targeting that part of the population that isn't contributing much to wealth production in this kind of economy geared to the wealthy. These are classic devices. There's nothing new about them. They're kind of extreme here, but they're not unknown. And the marijuana thing is a big piece of it.
Noam Chomsky. By not taking advantage of ecologically sustainable materials, such as hemp, for raw fiber and energy resources, changes in the Earth's climate may continue. Already the planet's temperature has increased slightly, and the unusual weather caused by El Niño is an indicator to some scientists that the so-called greenhouse effect has begun, a phenomenon linked to fossil fuel consumption. Aside from the ecological consequences of the energy practices of the United States and other industrialized nations, there's an immediate human cost in countries where weak regulatory oversight allows multinational companies to drill, log, and mine natural resources virtually unchecked. In the Indian state of Orissa, says Daphne Weisham, energy and aluminum companies are mining some of the last vestiges of coal and polluting the drinking water. Weisham, a research fellow for the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C., says that the World Bank forced the state to privatize the power sector, allowing U.S. corporations to establish coal-fired power plants there.
What I did when I visited Orissa is I went to see how the women were dealing with this. Because as you may know, in virtually every developing country, it's women who are the energy managers. And when I say energy, I'm talking about energy for human needs, like cooking and heating. Whether you're in India or a country in Africa, it's usually women that you will see head-loading wood, gathering fuel for cooking. As that fuel wood grows more and more scarce, they're increasingly turning to things like cow dung or crop waste to cook with. The story of the women in Orissa is that there's no longer any fuel wood. It's gone. In fact, there's no longer really any brush left. They're digging coal directly out of the ground and burning it, and they're using cow dung for fuel. When I spoke to them, they said, "Yeah, okay, we've gotten used to using cow dung. We're dealing with that. What we can't accept is what is happening thanks to this rapid coal mining that's going on in the area." Their water tables have been totally destroyed by the open pit coal mining that's going on, so they no longer have groundwater. Okay, they have the wells that are in all the villages have all run dry. So their only option is to go to the river. Well, the river has now been so vastly polluted by the ash from the burning of coal. Once they burn the coal, there's all of this ash created. They've dumped them in enough pits, there's no more land, so it's just going directly into the river. The rivers are gray and, of course, incredibly toxic. So what they're doing is they're digging what they call chuas on the river banks with their bare hands and scooping the water out of the sandy bank of the river, hoping that they're protecting the health of their children by this primitive filtration device of sand. This is a direct consequence of the World Bank moving in, privatizing the power sector, saying we can throw a lot of money at energy. We'll see an increase in GNP. That's what they love, that equation between an increase in energy investment and an increase in GNP, which they're certainly doing. You certainly are seeing an increase in GNP. It's when you look behind those numbers and you look at the human face of this energy development that you see a completely different picture.
Daphne Weisham of the Institute for Policy Studies. That's it for this edition of Making Contact, a look at the hemp movement. Thanks for listening. And special thanks this week to Major Reel and Judy Campbell, who provided editorial assistance and interviews. Mariah Gallardin contributed recorded portions. Shireen Meraji assisted with production. I'm Philip Babbage. If you want more information about the subject of this week's program, call the National Radio Project at 800-529-5736. Call that same phone number for tapes and transcripts, or if you'd like to make a comment or suggestion for future programs. That's 800-529-5736. Making Contact is an independent production funded by individual contributors. We're committed to providing a forum for voices and opinions not often heard in the mass media. Our national producer is David Barsamian. Philip Babbage is our managing producer. Our senior advisor is Norman Solomon. Peggy Law is our executive director. Our theme music is by the Charlie Hunter Trio. For everyone at Making Contact, thanks for listening.